Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about the comic book industry in a couple of videos today. We don't really talk about comics much because it's mostly bad news. But sometimes it's fun to talk about the bad news, unless you're working in the comic book industry. But we have this article from Heidi McDonald, who is the publisher of Comics Beat. She's writing for Publishers Weekly, and she's basically talking about how everybody needs to come together to fix comics. We all need to come together to fix comics. The publishers and the retailers, we need to put our heads together to figure out what's wrong with the comic book industry.
I'm confused. I thought the point of the Whisper Network and that she allegedly is part of was to fix comics to begin with.
I thought, they wanted to fix comics. They wanted to fix comics by keeping certain people out of the comic book industry. And it seemed like they kept casting a wider and wider net as to what it took to get kicked out of comics, right? So let's talk about this a little bit more. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. You get woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
So this was at ComicsPRO over the weekend in Pittsburgh, and I actually popped in for a couple hours. And, it was retailers and publishers and a couple creators. And it's basically just a big, summit on the comic book industry, the state of the comic book industry, right? And the thing that confuses me is that they're confused because it's pretty well documented what the problems with the comic book industry are at this point. I mean, we've got over half a decade of YouTube videos documenting the decline of the comic book industry. And we've got retailers, I think his name was Glenn O'Leary, coming out and saying, I can't sell comic books because you keep taking established characters and turning them into your own fan fiction, your own self-insert, and people are noping out. They're not buying these new books. And it doesn't take much to get consumers excited. You bring out Transformers #1 that just, puts the Transformers back to basics. They're cars that turn into robots or robots that turn into cars, but they're not talking about gender identity or gender politics, right?
You just make the comic books with the characters people know.
Right.
And good with good stories, and then you sell books. It's not really hard.
It's not hard. Ultimate Spider-Man. Peter Parker and Mary Jane are married. They have kids. This is where they probably would have been had they not undone Peter's marriage, 15 years ago or whatever. And that's what people want. They will buy it. If you give consumers what they want, they will buy it. But they keep trying to dance around this issue. Oh, it's really complicated, guys. We don't understand. Now, are there other factors? Yeah. I mean, it's harder to own a mom and pop retail store now. Rents are going up. I will give you that. It seems like the comic book buying audience is maybe getting older, aging out of comics or whatever. Kids aren't as into comics as they used to be. They're into manga now, not comics. But to keep your core audience happy, that's a no-brainer. Just don't reboot things all the time. Don't jack the prices up. Don't
antagonize creators people like, or try to get people that are successful out of the industry because you somehow think they stand in your way. Don't be cancel pigs, going against people that you personally have a beef with over politics or something stupid.
Yeah, and I think this is funny. They're calling it the comics industry is uniting against headwinds. The headwinds are many of them self-inflicted.
But the headwinds have been here. But you're just now uniting. And by uniting, do you mean everyone or just the ones you find acceptable?
That's what I want to know, because this whole thing reads like a kumbaya, but it's there are pockets of the comic book industry that are doing well. Crowdfunding is doing well, but you want to count people's numbers, right? Those YouTubers you don't like. You want to count their numbers toward the bottom line of the comic book industry, but you don't want to count those people as being part of the comic book industry.
You don't want to cover them in the news. You step over them, but cover your other people doing crowdfunders that you approve of. Somebody
does $20,000 on Kickstarter, they get all kinds of press. Somebody you like. Somebody you don't like does $1 million on Kickstarter, they're completely blacklisted from.
But you count their numbers towards.
But you count their numbers.
They're your bottom lines when you make. So you're like, oh, we're doing better.
Right. So, as far as the crowdfunding thing goes, I'll mention it in this video. I don't think I've mentioned it before, but Diamond is actually looking at distributing crowdfunders now and getting crowdfunded comics into comic book shops. And I think that they're starting to count crowdfunders more into the bottom line too, because they realize there's a lot of money being left on the table there, right? Mm-hmm. You know, but hey, we're all supposed to come together, but you're not. I remember when Kickstarter first started, I think it was Fantagraphics. Somebody from Fantagraphics or the Comic Book Journal said it was e-begging. It wasn't actually really part of the industry.
I know, and then they bullied them, so they pulled it down, and now here we are. I just think it's funny. The event they had was sponsored by ComicsPRO, an organization that's specialty comic shops for specialty comic shops. But they saw publishers, retailers, and even creators mingling and sharing ideas. Ironically, we fit every one of those.
We do
categories, and we aren't part of the group.
We could technically join. I mean, on several levels, we could technically join it. I thought about it.
I wanted you to do it just to go show up and see what happened. But
you can sponsor. If you're a member of ComicsPRO, you can sponsor like a lunch or something and be like, today's Bigot Chicken brought to you by Clownfish Studios.
Right.
Eat your chicken, Heidi.
And choke. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Choke your chicken, Heidi.
Oh, hey, speaking of which, there's a feature review for female ejaculation.
I know. I thought that was weird. It was like very distracting. I was like, it's called juice. Anyway, juice your chicken, Heidi. Continue.
Oh, my God. It's so... God, so everybody's trying to rewrite the history of this. And it's not just in comics. I mean, we're seeing it all over the place. We had Brianna Wu now. I guess she's making the rounds and she's talking to like right-wing pundits and stuff and calling for a ceasefire. Now we got Heidi McDonald being like, we all need to get together, guys, to save the comic book industry.
Now, to be fair, I do think that everybody needs to work together to come to some kind of there's something needs to be done 100%. But the problem is you're going to have a hard time getting people to work with you when you spent the last few years, getting them booted off of books, back channel bullshit, threats, things like that. What your plans to, get rid of this person, that person. It's going to be really hard for those people. Yeah. Mark Waid saying to shun Miller. At this point, it's going to be very, very hard to get people back to your side, even if you have good ideas. And while I agree there needs to be solutions made, because everyone wants to yell about the problem, but you need solutions too. And I 100% agree with that. The problem is it's going to be really hard now because you're going to have to spend a few years mending bridges, if you can even mend some of them. Some of them are just nuked to orbit. To try to undo the damage. And the people that are out there like, oh, look, we need to all get along now, kumbaya. A lot of them are the ones who were the ones that hit the button to blow up the bridges in the first place. Yeah,
I know, right? It's like, we did that other video. It's like they want amnesty now.
Right.
And
you went to scorched earth, and now you're like, whoopsie. Guess we all should just get along. Now let's hug it out.
This should have been the conversation that happened years ago. And you can't say it was just because there were YouTubers that had very, very mild takes that they were still shunned and blacklisted and even blocked by comic book pros because they didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear the truth.
By a bunch of people. It's ridiculous. But in this story, you're the bad guy. You are the bad guy. You all want to be like, let's put the olive branch out now. But the one who hit the button and nuked the bridges and caused a lot of the damage was yourselves.
Yeah. And again, it's not just Heidi.
No.
Several people, they're all, I mean, I saw the other day, and I don't consider him a cancel pig, by the way. I actually like his stuff quite a bit. But Jimmy Palmiotti, who was, I think he was like anti-comic skate or whatever, but not like hard in the paint, but he's apparently going on like Eric July's show now. Like people are starting to kind of cross over, and I think most people are over it, but a lot of these journalists and like the inner circle of the cancel pigs, they're never going to let this go. And it's like you caused the problem. There's screenshots of you trying to get people canceled from events, from publishers, from their deals. I mean, and again, I'm not asking you to agree with everybody's politics. You don't have to agree with people's politics, but that doesn't give you a right to, get them ousted from the industry because they voted for Trump or whatever. Does it affect the comic book at all? No.
But the thing is, their politics do affect the comic book. That's the problem. One side, especially, they keep trying to put, self-inserts, self-agendas, self-political leanings, all that shit into the comic books. And then they try to be like, why isn't no one buying my books?
Yeah.
I'm not Starfire.
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean, I'm just saying, literally, one example of many,
Mandy literally was the author. Like, you put a picture side by, like, this is what that publisher, Glenn O'Leary, that's what he was talking about. And he got blasted by people on social media. By people, I mean, comic book pros that like most people don't pay attention to on any
people
other
that
day.
now want an olive branch.
Now they want an olive branch.
Yeah, those people.
But they tried to destroy this man. And all he said was, I can't sell books where you take an existing character and you turn them into your Tumblr self-insert. I can't sell books like that. Nobody wants to buy Iceman because he's no longer Iceman. You know, nobody wants to buy Tim Drake because he's not Tim Drake. Nobody wants to buy Action Comics where Superman is sexting his purple-haired boyfriend in the bathtub. Superman should be like fighting robots and shit, you know? That's what he's saying. And then you've got people like Heidi McDonald going to shops that have closed down after decades and being like, so did you close down because of the SJWs and the wokies? Is that why? And they're like, no, basically we couldn't sell the shit that Marvel and DC are publishing. So we're going out of business. Oh, it's because the rent went up. They're like, yes, inflation happens. The rent did go up, but we could cover the rent if we could sell the books that we were given to sell.
So you're closing because of the rent. I got it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, come on, stop playing dumb. Like, you cannot tell me the comic book industry is healthy when we have shops that have been in business for decades, shops that weathered the late 90s when everything imploded, you know, shops that weathered the pandemic. And now all of a sudden they're all going out of business all at once. But things are fine.
Now we got to come up with a solution, guys.
Now we have to come up with.
Which I agree. We do need a solution. 100%. Because I don't want to see anybody else have to go out of business and stuff. Like I don't even know what the solution is, but I know people are going to have to get along. I know that much. But the thing is, you can't just say, okay, well, you know, I'm sorry that we caused you all this shit, but now we decided we're over it now. Just because you decide you're over it doesn't mean that you've done enough to you know, mend fences and, you know, rebuild bridges. You know what I'm saying? You guys have to do way more than that.
I'm just sitting here thinking like, okay, you don't wait until somebody dies of a heart attack to tell them that they have to make better choices in their diet and they need to exercise. And that's what they're doing. The comic book industry is basically dying. I mean, it's dying at this point. And I think that the damage is irreparable. I think that I think there are always going to be comic books. I'm not, you know, don't take what I'm saying out of context. There will always be comics. There will always be a market for comics, but it's going to be a lot more niche. The days of comic books being this like massive force in pop culture, other than the movies, it's over.
Which are in massive decline.
Which are already in massive decline.
That is also playing into this too. You have all these movies that you had put books out for years of characters that weren't in the movies, which was really stupid. Yeah. And that's why you had a lot of the back issues were selling because it, you know, actually applied to what was out on the screen. But they're in decline too. People just have lost interest. They're superheroed out. That is the problem. That's why manga was still doing well. Graphic novels, you know, could still be doing well. Independents were still doing well. But even those are starting to hit a bit of decline now because people are just over it.
Yeah. And that's just it. I mean, we had like a superhero bubble. I'm so weird to see this happen. Like all these movies came out and they had very little to do with the comic books they were based on, you know?
Like, oh, let's go look at the comic. Yeah, these are comic characters, kids. Let me go show you the comics I used to read. What the fuck is this? You know, it's like, you know.
Right, yeah. And
why is Superman talking to his boyfriend in a bathtub? I don't understand.
Why is Robin gay now? They were friends when I read this. Like, yeah, it doesn't make any damn sense. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Where's Iron Man? Who's this Riri Williams chick? You know? That kind of thing.
So they're trying to figure out how many comic books are actually being sold. And I guess they're all getting together to work on this Comet standard. Right. That's my understanding.
I don't disagree with that, but I don't know if it's gonna present the numbers they hope it does. And are they going to be honest with it?
Yeah, the problem with any kind of sampling of like store data is you run into like the New York Times bestseller list where, you know, some stores are basically weighted more than others. And they extrapolate their data based on like, oh, okay, this bookstore in Brooklyn sold a bunch of copies of this book. So now it's on the New York Times bestseller list because that store in Brooklyn sold. But then meanwhile, the rest of the country, the thing's sitting on the shelf, you know.
You just send the retailer, so the retailers are going to report their numbers. And then you just have different people from the company go to different stores and buy a bunch of books and send them to Ollie's. And then they say, oh, look, we're selling all these books. I mean, that doesn't fix the problem. That might give you a book list, not a sale number. It doesn't mean it's still not being cheated. It doesn't mean that, you know, it doesn't fix the fact that people aren't buying the books. Yeah. It just gives you a number reporting system that you like better. It doesn't actually fix it.
So yeah, they're talking about like cleaning up the metadata and you know, trying to do better with the sales.
That doesn't fix the problem.
It doesn't fix the problem. Like this is all. Yeah, they said the big driving force for the metadata project was the sales charts. Corporations want to say, here's how we rank in the industry. They have a vested interest in getting this information. I don't think they do. I think that actually, I personally think Marvel and DC are happy that nobody really knows how the comic book industry is doing. Like, because if you could actually broadcast, oh, hey, yeah, Batman's only selling 50,000 copies, then Warner Brothers going to look at it and be like, why the fuck are we keeping the offices open?
I'm sorry. I'm laughing because they're talking about the event. And they're saying the event is growing in importance. Haynes said that many potential exhibitors and speakers had to be turned away because of time and space constraints.
All right.
Oh, is that what you're saying, Heidi? You just showed up and supposedly your panel got canceled, but it was because of time and space constraints. Wink, yeah, that's what it was.
I heard a rumor. I can't verify. I heard a rumor that her panel was canceled because they did not want to antagonize the retailers.
It's time and space constraints. That's what she's going to say.
It actually wasn't. It wasn't that. Like, it was at a hotel, and it wasn't a very big hotel. It wasn't. This wasn't, San Diego Comic-Con. This wasn't New York Comic-Con. It was, yeah.
There's other bigger hotels they could go to.
Right. Yeah, it was in a relatively small hotel in downtown Pittsburgh. It wasn't a huge event.
Wait, and although ComicsPRO would like to expand the event even more, many shop owners can't be away from their stores that long. Wait, I'm confused. If they weren't there because they couldn't be away from their stores that long, how was that a problem with space and time constraints? I don't know. It's like, double talking. I don't know.
It just, yeah.
Yeah, that's why, Heidi. That's why.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know.
Sure, Heidi.
I don't know. They said there's publishing news. Yeah, DC's going back to Wednesday. I know that they're supposedly going back to Wednesday. I mean, again, it doesn't matter if they are because it doesn't fix the content.
Yeah, you still have to have things people are going to want.
It's like, oh, it's great. Now you get your shit on Wednesday instead of Tuesday.
That's what I'm saying. Like their idea, like, hey, we need to have a better number system to record the books you're not selling, and we're gonna move it to Wednesday, but the books still aren't selling. But like the problem isn't these things. The problem is that you're not moving the books to begin with. That's the problem. Like seems like you're talking around the problem, but you're not addressing the problem.
The problem is the books that are being produced don't fucking sell, and the shops are going out of business because they don't fucking sell. If you'd done Transformers and Ultimate Spider-Man 5 years ago, we might not be having this conversation right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, if everything was that good, or at least they at least attempted to listen to what their audience wanted. Instead, they wanted to chase a phantom audience, people that weren't there.
It wasn't even that. As soon as people would complain about it,
they would complain, they get blasted.
They got called bigots.
Bigots and Nazis.
And then we had the Whisper Network and all this other shit trying to weed out the people that we were thinking no good nicks. And now we have a problem, and they're still not finding a solution. They're talking about better number reporting, which does nothing with the books
cleaning
don't
up
sell.
the metadata. Again, this is all superficial. It's like, look, you've got termites in your house. It doesn't matter what color you paint the house. Mm-hmm. If you don't fix the problem with the termites, the house is going to fucking fall down. All right? That's, what I'm saying? Like, this is like the comic book industry isn't even an industry because these people don't think like business people. A business person would be like, what is there a demand for? What's selling right now? What's hot right now? What do customers actually want? The comic book industry, the customers tell you very loudly what they want and what they don't want. There's no guessing. There is no guessing. You know what they want, and you tell them to go fuck themselves.
Right.
Basically.
And then you're talking about at the end with this Kumbaya quote.
Oh, God.
I guess during Boom's guy gave a uplifting trademark slideshow. So it's like when you pay to go to one of those,
Amway.
Yeah, one of those
it's Amway.
Like,
it's even in a hotel.
Let's
it's
feel
Amway.
better about the bullshit. Now they're just polishing the turd.
Yeah, that's exactly
but it's still a turd. And then the behind the camaraderie and schmoozing was a sense that these uncertain times may lead down a challenging road. Truth, despite all the popularity and acclaim for comics. Where? And the problems can't be solved alone. We need to be working as a full industry on this, said Haynes. We really need all the people pulling in the same direction. But all I'm hearing is we all need to report our numbers so we have a better number system that we can say that comics don't sell.
Somebody needs to go to this show and be the fucking bad guy.
Well, I wanted you to go and you wouldn't do it.
Somebody needs to go and be like, look, here's where the bear shits in the woods. The reason that the comic book industry
And then they have just a security escort you.
Yeah, they would. Be like, but the reason the industry is in the state that it's in right now is you. The comic book industry put itself in this position. You've had many, 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 many opportunities over the last 6 or 7 years to course correct. And anytime anybody suggests that the problem might be you push them out of the industry. Shun them. Fire them. Get them out. Oink, oink. Get them out of the industry. Blacklist them. And again, I want to reiterate, you don't have to agree with the politics of everyone that's calling out the comic book industry. But sometimes there's a kernel of truth there. And sometimes you should listen to retailers like Glenn O'Leary, who are on the front lines, who are telling you exactly why they're not selling your books. Because you're producing stuff that people don't want.
Yeah, the metadata isn't really the concern.
Who the fuck cares about the metadata?
I mean, you have to know what's selling, but the problem is they're not selling. Or you look at the report legitimately what's selling, and you're going to probably see what's selling is what we're telling you would sell, and you just don't want to hear it.
Oh my God, Ultimate Spider-Man's doing really good. People actually like married Peter Parker. Like, yeah, you missed the 15 years of complaining when you divorced him.
Sometimes, and that's what we keep hearing. It's like it's always everybody else's fault. We see this with Hollywood a lot too. The problem isn't everybody else. The problem is you. The
problem is you.
And you need to fix it. And I'm not seeing any answers here other than let's get better data. I mean, that's not going to fix it.
That's not going to fix
shit.
We
do need a solution. I wish I had one. People are like, well, what's your solution? I honestly don't. Well, one, make comics people want. That's not my number one solution. But it might be too little too late because you need to do this several years ago before people completely. And now that the superhero industry in general is just a massive decline from movies, what was carrying it too. I don't know what to tell you at this point.
That was the biggest failure. We had the world's attention. Because all these billion-dollar movies were in the theaters. And then they go to the comic shop and the characters are all different.
Yeah. And now the people, and then the movies decided to make their characters like the ones in the comic shop.
Yeah.
And now the movies are in the shitter too. Two different industries with the same characters. What do you think the problem is? There's always a saying like, the greatest common denominator. Okay.
Yeah.
The greatest common denominator is the shit you're cranking out.
And I can't say everything is shit that's being.
Not everything is. That's not fair.
It's getting buried. It's getting harder and harder to find, good stuff.
And the shit.
Well, what's going on is people are so disgusted by the state of the comic book industry or so disinterested in the industry in general that even if there is good stuff out there, if you have to buy 10 or 15 bad books to find one good book at $3 or $4 or $5 a pop,
not helping, no.
They're not going to do it.
And to be fair, the pricing isn't all their fault. It has gone up significantly in publishing and stuff like that. I mean, I'm going to be fair here.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I think they're just gouging. They are in some cases. But the costs have gone up significantly. I can tell you for a fact. So some of the inflation you're seeing is because it legitimately has to go up in price. But people can't afford it. But I would recommend when you hear something about if you want to help the comic book industry, if you hear about a shop that's a good shop, go to the shop.
Yeah.
If you hear about a book that's doing really well, like Transformers, and people are getting excited about Thundercats and things like that are doing well, go buy the books. Go buy those comics. That is what's going to take to help everyone and get out of it. One, to show what actually sells. Hopefully now they'll fucking listen because they have to. And two, then it's giving money to people that are actually giving you what you want. So you're supporting what you want. And that way they'll say, we need more of this. And that's what you think you need to do. It's not going to fix anything initially, but it'll help.
I think that's it right there. Like, you have to support. Like, you can complain about everything, but if you're not supporting the good stuff, then they're not going to make any more of that either.
Yeah, when people do it right, you need to make sure you say, yes, I recognize that you did this right. Or even if you don't have the money to go buy all this stuff, tell everyone, I'm hearing only good things about this. Yeah. That's what I think you need to do. That's one step. That's not going to fix it by any means because I don't think the interest is there anymore. You can't, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you can't support an entire industry on a handful of good books.
But what the takeaway needs to be is, well, what do people want? They're buying these books. Why are they buying these books? Oh my God, because they act like themselves. The characters are themselves in these books. This is what the customer wants. This is what they've expected from these books.
You would think that's a no-brainer.
You would think these people had brains. But see, that's your first mistake. You thought they were smart.
Wait. So let me get this straight. So when a person buys a Batman comic, they expect, let me get this straight. See if I'm understanding you. They expect Batman to act like Batman?
Yes.
Oh my God, that's mind-blowing.
When you buy a Superman comic, you expect Superman to be Superman. When you buy an Iron Man comic, you're expecting Iron Man, not Riri Williams. I mean, that's Ironheart, but you know what I'm saying.
It's such fucking ridiculous like
and-
any other business. You don't go to McDonald's for pizza.
When something keeps not selling, like Ms. Marvel, you don't reboot it 20 times. You just say, hey, you know what? People don't want this shit.
Yeah.
Let's put it to bed. Maybe we'll try to bring it back in a few years and see if maybe they'll be more interested then. Because I think Ms. Marvel would have been done okay if it was being sold in a healthy industry where people aren't automatically turned off because they know what they're going to get. And then you have these creators out there joining around canceling people and shooting their mouths off. You stop that stuff, you muzzle these people, especially on Twitter. And you know, if you're one that you're hiring these people, you find people that'll do the work, do a good job, and won't shoot their mouth off every chance they get, turning people away.
Yeah.
That'll help also. I mean, it's not really hard. It's just common sense.
It's not hard. I mean, all of these problems are self-inflicted.
So they should have brought you as a speaker. You would have been like, fix
Oh,
this.
they would have run me out on the rail.
Probably. They
But
didn't
the
even know
thing,
you were there. They would have been so pissed.
some people I think did know we're there because I was talking to my one friend and he's like, yeah, you have a very distinctive voice and people are kind of looking at us. Let's go for a walk. I'm like, ah, shit.
For real?
Yeah.
That's happened before, actually.
Yeah, it has happened before. But like, I think they need more people.
Why, do you not want to be associated with you in public?
No, that wasn't it at all. I think it was more like we don't want to have an awkward conversation about like, you know, whatever. And we're mild. Like if you can't take what we're saying, you should hear what people are saying behind the scenes.
They're fans of comics than we are.
Right. And you know, retailers, I guarantee you. So the reason that more people aren't speaking up is they are afraid. They're afraid of people like Heidi McDonald.
Oh,
They're
don't
afraid
be
of
afraid
people.
Heidi McDonald. Heidi
No, but
McDonald
I'm just
doesn't
saying
have that much power. She thinks she does, but she really don't think does.
But if you go against the grain and you don't get on board the Kumbaya train, they're gonna write hit pieces up. They went again.
Yeah, and what happened? They're removing journalism as one of the categories at the
From the
Eisners,
Eisners.
and she's pissed.
Yeah. I mean, you went too far. You went too fucking far. You don't have to agree with the politics of the people that are on YouTube. But sometimes they have a point. Sometimes they have a point. A lot of times they have a point. You know, and if you actually cared about the health of the comic book industry, you'd be willing to listen to people that maybe you don't like, but they are correct.
Well, that's just it. Like, I've had instances, like, there's one person, and it's a long story, but I was involved in PTO, and there was one person, we did not get along. Did not get along at all. However, just because we don't get along doesn't mean they aren't right, because there was an incident that happened, and they had some comments to make, and I sided with them, and somebody else who didn't like them was like, why did you side with them? They're blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, because they're not wrong. Me not liking you personally has nothing to do with the fact that what you're saying is correct. Like, it's not that hard. It's called being an adult. And what I understand why I don't like you personally, what you're saying makes sense, and that's fair.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, like, that's cutting your nose up to spite your face. It's just because you don't like somebody doesn't mean they're always wrong. Sometimes they're right, and you just have to listen.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there because I think they're going to be forced to listen. I don't think there's any other choice.
I really wish you had.
Oh, I might go. If it's going to be in Pittsburgh next year.
Officially go.
I'll officially go. They're not going to like what I have to say, but I'll officially go. I'll just be
They won't let us in. They're probably there's video like don't block their entry. Don't let them pay
Oh my
dues.
God. Like, I feel unsafe because Clownfish might say a mean thing. It's like, we're not even mean. If you
I think
can't
people
handle
saw
us.
we aren't probably at all what they expected, but that's okay.
No, like, if you can't handle us, like, damn, don't leave your house because we're actually very, very mild. We have very mild takes. We're just tired of this shit. And this can be fixed very easily. You just got to listen. We're going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.
Bye.